My friends, do you remember the days when cars were all about the aerodynamics, going all the way back into even like the 40s and 50s? Everything was swoopy and round. And now we have become blocky and angular, especially if you're a Cadillac. And today we're going to take a look at another in a series of the ferocious competitors that occupy the compact sport utility luxury segment. This here is your XT4 Cadillac. And as you can see, it has that slab-sided Cadillac faceplate that everybody knows now. And the question is, it looks so ultra-modern and has for quite some time, but is the entire vehicle an ultra-modern vehicle with all the latest stuff and all the latest technology? I reckon it probably is. So let's take a look, shall we? And look at one of Cadillac's most interesting entries, especially given the fact that it's a compact. Come along with me. Size can be determined very easily if you have something to scale it next to, but I don't at the moment, except the lawn. And there's trees. We got lots of trees up here. Isn't that pretty? Well, the fact of the matter is, this is in fact a compact, the XT4 Sport from a Cadillac, but it has something really interesting about it that makes it, it's a compact, yes, but it also has a really long wheelbase for a compact. What you're looking at here is 109.4 inches between the axles. Now, what does that do for you in this compact shape? Well, as you can tell, look at the rear overhang. It's practically non-existent. And all in all, having the wheel so far back does a number of things for you. It enhances stability. Mainly, it increases rear seat room. It doesn't really help with cargo capacity all that much. But the fact of the matter is, you got a wheel at every corner and a nice long wheelbase, so that helps ride. It helps handling a little bit. It doesn't help parking because it does tend to make the the turning radius just a little bit longer when you have a long wheelbase like that. But I'm fascinated by the fact that Cadillac decided to build this platform on such a long wheelbase, because it shows that they're still focusing a lot on luxury, meaning that's really going to enhance the ride quality and the rear passenger quality in terms of room and experience when they're sitting back there listening to the fine Bose sound system as you motor them on their way. But the fact of the matter is, it's still a compact vehicle, meaning it can fit in your garage pretty easily, and it will fit in parking places pretty easily, and should be getting, as we will determine, fairly good gas mileage. It's powered by a little 2-liter inline 4-cylinder, but it puts out 235 horsepower, which is respectable, and 258 pounds of torque, foot-pounds, I should say, at the low RPM of 1,500 RPM all the way up to 4,000 RPM. We'll go over this again, of course, when we examine the engine, but it's got a lot of good numbers to it. And the thing that, like I said, really grabbed my attention when I first saw it was how long this wheelbase is, because that tells me an awful lot about what's going to happen when we start to go over rough roads and things like that. Depending on how the suspension is tuned, it really helps to have that long distance between the front and back wheels. And it also helps when you're driving aggressively on a road. It helps with your stability, and it also helps with crosswinds. Because even though this is a compact, it's a tall compact, it's a big box, and they can get blown around quite a bit. So You never know until you get in them and drive them whether or not it's going to be, let's say, more of an automotive type driving experience or more of an SUV type driving experience. So with that said, let me show you the motor, the engine, the under compartment, the thing residing in the bonnet. And we'll see what if we're talking about the modernization of the modern Cadillac power plant, or if it's just an extension of one that's been around for a long time. Come with me. Gee, I wonder if our engine is a normally aspirated, or wait a minute, what's that? Turbo! Yeah, it's turbocharged. It's 2 liters. It is mounted in a way that is the most common way you're going to see these 4-cylinder engines in just about everything. It is mounted transversely right over the front wheels. The front wheels being the primary drive wheels. Matter of fact, you can get a version of this vehicle that is front wheel drive only. But we have been graced in our XT4 Sport with all-wheel drive, which is great. But as you can see, we do have the standard layout these days where your turbocharger is in the back, where your exhaust manifold is, and then your intake system is in the front, so that's where your fuel injection is. I believe it's direct fuel injection. I don't have that right in front of me, but let's just say it probably is. I think it is. But anyway, here we have a very good size, healthy size air box. And this runs around here, all the way through here, all the way through here. And that's where it takes, you got the part that spins right there, which uses your exhaust gas to spin a turbine, which then turns an impeller, which then takes the actual turbo part of it, takes this nice cold air and blows it, compresses it, and then it's warm again because they compressed it. So it goes through an intercooler system. You can see some of this down in here, where my hand is right there. You see? You see? So it goes to an intercooler and it gets cooled back down again before it enters into the intake system. And it's pretty standard fare. Has this engine been around for a while? Yeah, it's been around a little bit, I believe. But it's very, very, it's state of the art as far as pretty much what everybody in this category runs these days. And that's not surprising to anybody because that's where we are. Everything's turbocharged primarily due to emissions. But there's advantages to it. And one of it, with just 2 liters, yet you get 235 horsepower at 5,000 RPM. And then the torque thing is what is always so amazing about these engines, because it has a 258 foot-pounds of torque between 1,500 RPM all the way up to a peak of 4,000 RPM. Nice, huh? And that is all plumbed into a 9-speed automatic transmission, a conventional automatic. It's not a dual clutch or anything like that. And as you will see, it's a very nice shifting transmission and a good fit for this engine too. 9 speeds is a lot, but they've got it balanced such that with the power output of the engine, it's a real nice flow of power. It's not too jumpy, not too peaky. It has a nice feel to it, almost like you have a little V6 underneath the hood. Not quite, but almost. But what else do we have? Well, here's our battery, and as you can see, it's the size of a small house. You're seeing more and more of this these days, where the batteries, it's a really outstanding, it's not really a koozie, it's more of a housing for the battery. And these batteries are getting so huge because there's so much stuff that runs off the power of the battery system. And if this does have direct fuel injection, which I'm assuming it probably does, that requires the pump that pumps all this fuel in at very high pressure, because it has to overcome the compression of the cylinders to get the fuel in it. All these things take a hell of a lot of power, and then you've got all your accessories with all your other onboard electrics. Everything's run by a computer or 2 or 3 or 4. They're all over the place. So you have so much that is dependent upon pure electric power. And again, in most cases, that battery, its primary function is to get all the other computers fired up and turn the starting motor. It also, depending on what vehicle, a lot of vehicles use them for all kinds of ancillary things like window motors for your electric windows and things like that. But I have just noticed this trend. These batteries are getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger all the time. So one thing that's great too is we're seeing this thing, there's a bit of a schism going on with manufacturers about removing covers on the top of the engine. And they have all kinds of reasons they say they're doing that. I'm the only thing that convinces me is two things. It's much easier to leave, if you open up this, this particular, take off this cover, you're going to see a mess underneath there as far as all the wiring. It's just all over the place. It's not, but apparently it's expensive to dress the wiring and everything else so it looks neat. It takes more effort to do that, as I understand it. It's much easier just to put it all on there and then put a cover on top of that. But they've decided instead with a lot of vehicles just to dispense with the engine cover altogether and not even bother to dress the cables. So you have just a mess on the underside of your, when you open the hood, you look lost because, yeah, there's a lot of sensors, there's a lot of everything going on underneath there electrically and with coolant systems because, again, since we have a turbocharged engine, you have so much more cooling requirements, including the intercooler itself for the turbocharger, but just these engines tend to run a lot hotter because of turbocharging just in general. So you have all that to deal with. So I don't know what they're really doing it for. I think they're just doing it because it's cheaper to do it without having an engine cover. But this Cadillac before you has a beautiful engine cover. And see how nice everything looks underneath here? It may be complete chaos underneath that cover, but it looks good when you open the engine. And does that matter? I personally think it does. I like to open the hood when I'm going to check the oil or do some routine maintenance or something like that for a nice engine to present itself. So we'll watch this space and see what happens. But as of right now, Cadillac is staying the course with a nice engine cover to make it look very, very presentable. And with that, we will present more on our XT4. I spoke of trends, as I often do. And another trend on the modern car is, first of all, I mentioned engine covers. Most engines have them, but they're starting to disappear, and it's a very strange time if you're an engine cover enthusiast. But we're also going to an age of really big wheels. And even though this is a compact SUV, compact crossover, if you will, we're looking at 20-inch wheels on it. Very stylish Cadillac wheels, and as you can see, a very good size brake caliper and brake rotor because, hey, this is the sport model. So they want to put very solid brakes on here. What we've got here is a Continental that is a 245/45 R20. Now, it's a mud and snow rated, yes. But what else is it? Well, it does not appear to be a run flat, which is a good thing. But don't think that you have a spare tire, as you're going to see in a minute. By the way, have you ever noticed with Continental tires? Look at that little pony right there. Isn't that cool? They got that pony on there for you. What does this do when we have such big wheels? Well, one of the biggest arguments for big wheels is that they say it's much easier to mount larger brakes. But depending on the offset of the wheel, that's not necessarily true. But more than anything else, I believe it's done for style. And there are a lot of drawbacks to having such big wheels, especially if you have a vehicle like this that professes to have a degree of off-roadness that you can drive it, but you hit a good pothole with one of these wheels, and in the case like this where the actual thickness of the tire is not all that great, you can do some real damage to that wheel, and that's expensive, and that's something you have to have fixed. You can't go around with a big dent in your wheel for a variety of reasons, including like, oh, I don't know, keeping the air in the tire, that kind of thing. But that's the way they all are now. This is the way we go. We go with much, much larger wheels than we used to for style, because that seems to be what the customer wants. Now we'll walk along our beautiful 109-inch wheelbase. And as I mentioned before, look at that tiny little overhang right there. So what does this do to our cargo capacity? Well, let's have a look, shall we? There we go. Naturally, it's powered, this being a Cadillac, And there we are. Now, as you can see, the liftover is pretty high. It's almost up to my waist. And I'm 6'2" and weigh 245. No, I'm 5'8". But it's interesting because this is one of those things I find fascinating about the human animal versus the automotive animal. Is in a lot of cases, depending on what kind of parcel or whatever you're loading into the back of your SUV or your CUV, sometimes a higher liftover can be good, make it a hell of a lot easier to put the item in and take it out. And other times it's actually not. It's not a good way to go. So, I mean, what are you going to do with that? But in here, we have a very nicely furnished cargo area, and we got beautiful dual LED cargo lights. And then what's underneath here? Well, it looks like there's a space there for a spare tire, but it actually says, and I'm not making this up, folks, it actually says on the performance side of the Maroni that this is a performance enhancement, the fact that it doesn't have any kind of a spare at all. It just has what looks to be a tire repair kit and a UL inflator. So those are fine, provided you just have a nail in the tire. They can probably get you where you're going. Otherwise, good luck with that. And I'm a huge person, not a huge person, I'm actually a small person. Well, I'm a medium-sized person, let's put it that way. But I'm a big believer in having some kind of a spare, even if it's just a temporary spare. Because I don't like having to stop and wait for the auto club, or I like being able to keep going, you know what I'm saying? So, speaking of which, when I'm talking about going, how much can you go with in your cargo compartment? In other words, what is the capacity? Well, hang on one second. Let me get my data. More data. All right, we have about 22.5 cubic feet of room with the with the rear seats in their upright position. Upright and tray tables stored and all that kind of thing. But if you fold those 60-40 increments down, that expands to about 49 cubic feet. So not a whole hell of a lot of room, but certainly serviceable for most people. And the big part about this that I think is impressive is, as you will see, the rear seat accommodations are very good. But you also still have a perfectly serviceable cargo area. I mean, you can get a couple of really big suitcases and a bunch of accoutrements in here without any problem at all. So I think it's very good space utilization, which shows overall very nice and intelligent interior design, which is what we all want in our interior design. We want the intelligent, not the stupid interior design, but the intelligent. And as you can tell, this thing looks like a Cadillac. It has that slab-sided and those ultra cool taillight treatments, and the very cool dual exhaust. 2 exhaust pipes, or ports I guess I should say, for that little 4-cylinder engine. 2 liters and it gets 2 pipes. How about that? Symmetry. All right, in we go. Welcome. Now let's see if I can get this to do this. I've been trying to get it to do it because I know it did it. And what am I talking about anyway? Let's see. Yeah, it doesn't do it anymore. Damn it. Well, see, I could swear when I first got in this vehicle, it did this really neat graphics thing that one of the things General Motors has been doing, I noticed this first on some of the new Silverado and GMC Sierra pickup trucks, was they're taking the completely flat screen display, which usually has analog, simulated analog instruments in it and gauges, and where most manufacturers have a separate pod right here for your instrumentation, and then over here where the center screen is, they have a completely different screen sitting here, a box, if you will. They're blending all this into one display, which I think is beautiful. I like that a lot. I think that just works really well. And the way Cadillac has done it with their Cadillac User Interface, Q to you and me, it just is very, very pleasing to the eye. But there's other things about it that are really great. One of the things, and I'll go straight to this, over here on this left-hand side, what do we have? Well, hi, there's my hand. I'm entering into the world of reflection. If you take a look at this right here, what I have set up right now is the trip odometer, and it's extremely easy to read, and it's off to the sides, and it's there when you need it. And as you can tell, I've gone 49.8 miles, and I'm averaging 21.7 miles per gallon according to them. Now, what about other things on here? Well, you can hit this right here, and we'll go to, sorry, come on, there we go. You can put other things here. You can put gauge, what the heck is that? Map, and there's the map. Whee! Look at that. The entire display is the gauge, is the map, your navigation map. Or if you put gauge up here, there's your gauge, which you would expect to see. And if you put clean, let's go clean. All it is some stars. Stars are nice, and a digital speedometer, and a few other key things such as your miles to empty, which is 297 miles as indicated. And then your shifting, whether or not you're in park, reverse, neutral. That's called Prindle. If it has an L here instead of an M for manual, most of these usually have park, reverse, neutral, drive, low. Prindle. Prindle is important to know as an expression because all automatic transmissions have a Prindle switch in the transmission. And it's not unusual in vehicles for that to go south occasionally. And when that happens, just weird things happen with your transmission shifting. Nothing dangerous, but it just doesn't work completely properly. And they are usually, in most cases, very inexpensive and easy to replace if they go south. I've had that personal experience with one of my vehicles. Actually, on two of our vehicles, the Prindle switch has gone out on it. No big deal at the time, but I noticed it didn't feel right. The shifting didn't feel right as far as the quadrant shifter itself. Go to the dealership and they say, oh yeah, we'll price that Prindle switch for it. And it's very inexpensive, and it's done in an hour, you know. So just for your knowledge, but now this is not Prindle, of course. This is Prindum, which of course is park, reverse, neutral, drive, and manual. Now below that, we'll see our two-wheel drive indicator. Now what does that mean? Well, we're at front-wheel drive right now because we are in, what's our drive mode? Let's have a look. Our drive mode at the moment, you can go to all-wheel drive version of this drive mode, but if I hold it down, what do we get? I'm holding you down. Why aren't you doing this? There we go. Now here's our settings here in the center screen. You have an off-road setting. You have a touring setting. You have, what else? Sport setting. And all these different things. Now off-road, of course, is all-wheel drive. And as you can see by the logo down here, there's your little symbol, and there is indicating that you have four-wheel drive on. But if we go back to manual, and we go here, and we go down here to sport, sport is also all-wheel drive, but it's a different type of gearing for the all-wheel drive system. And then, if we hit it again, thank you. Oops. I'm pressing the wrong button, sorry. I moved my thumb, I didn't mean to. Here we go, come on, wake up. Hey, I'm talking to you, thank you. And so those are basically our three settings: sport, off-road, and tour. And tour is one of the most interesting because you do have that choice between two-wheel drive, as you can see down there, right there, and you can also have a four-wheel drive, a full-time four-wheel drive version. If you just touch it like that, there you go. See, now it's all-wheel drive, and it's popped up in the sport. See, this is and I have this problem when I'm driving this car. To the best of my knowledge, I think there are two settings while you are in the touring setting between all-wheel drive and front-wheel drive. But the fact of the matter is, the two-wheel drive setting under the touring setting is purely your most economical road-going system. In other words, you'll get a little bit better mileage because it completely disconnects the rear drivetrain. But the sport setting and the off-road setting automatically turn on your all-wheel drive system. So Does it really dramatically affect mileage? Probably not. It's probably not that big a deal. Incidentally, we are now in a different mode as far as the display is concerned. And I don't know how I did that exactly, but this is the problem with me and this Cadillac user interface. A lot of it is not completely intuitive to me. But there's our tachometer. Look at it go. Wow, there we are. And but where's our indicator that tells me how much fuel we have left? Well, let's see. Oh, I'm at clean. I'm sorry. Let me go back to gauge. There, I'll press gauge. And what do we have here? Now we have the odometer. We have the coolant temperature, which is 163 degrees and climbing. And there's our gas gauge right there. And our remaining to empty, which is 295 miles. So again, it's like all these other things. You got to fish your way through all the various menus to figure out what's going on the right hand side here. We got right now I got favorites and other things in there. And can you change that display? I believe you can, but it's not exactly intuitive on how you do that. Look at there. There's displaying something below the display that I don't know what it is. Anyway, find your way through it, folks, because I've been working on it for a while now, and I'm still losing my way. But it is nice to notice that how comprehensive this particular gauge setup is, because now we have this tachometer right there, and then we have our oil pressure. Cool, huh? A regular gas gauge, coolant temperature, and is that oil temperature? Yes, it is. So it goes into this mode. When you put it in that gauge mode, that actually gives you quite a bit of good information. Now, what else is over here? This here, which I pressed before, is our distance and all that kind of stuff for your trip meter. And here's our heads-up display, which I have turned off. I'll turn it on for you here. Tap to turn on. I don't see it. Come on. There we go. Ah, there we are. And if you can see that amongst the shrubbery, yeah, you can see. I can see it blinking from here. Wow, what frequency was that at? What frame rate is that? It's a different frame rate than everything else. So anyway, you can turn that on and off. And there we go. And then I go back here to my trip meter. So anyway, as I began this whole discussion with, it's really nice having this off in this left part of the display, which runs all the way across. Okay then, so how about the center display? What do we have? Well, pretty straightforward, pretty normal. Here's our navigation setting right here. And as you can see, you have a nice wide screen. It's also very easy to read. It's crystal clear, actually. And I hardly approve of that. And you can adjust, if we want to set that up to the compass setting so that the map is facing true north. Or is it magnetic north? I think it's true north. To navigate your way, and here you can search very easily. It uses Google for everything, which you'll either like or hate depending on how you feel about Google. And they're, let us just say, information gathering activities that they're always doing. But what do we have else on this display? Well, here's how you interact with Google, by the way. Hello, Google. Hello. See, it's speaking. It's repeating what I said. Now it hates me because it knows I don't want to talk to it. So, but here's your main menu that it goes from left to right, and Classic Vinyl Station is on, and the Play Store, so you can order apps for this thing. I don't know how you guys feel about that, but this is something cool. This is Waze, or Waze, depending on how you look at it. I have a Waze account. I've used Waze for quite some time for navigation. Mainly, my favorite thing about Waze is it gives you an amazing amount of information in real time, as far as what the traffic's like. Anyone using this car can see your info and past drives. Protect your privacy by signing out or deleting your history. Okay, whatever. But anyway, if you use Waze and you like it, it's right there. It's built in. That's interesting. What does that mean? Is Woz been sold to Google? Who knows? I can never follow these things. But anyway, these are our basic menu functions. And the audio function is right here. And in addition to, come on now, come on. Well, it's going to keep that map over there, I guess. But yeah, there we go. You know, the thing is, every one of these systems, I wish there was more standardization from manufacturer to manufacturer, because every one of these systems is different. You got to learn how to fish through it to put your favorites in there and everything else. And obviously, once you've done that, you're not going to have to spend a whole lot of time dealing with this interface, which I find kind of clunky. But you do have right over here is your presets that once you get your favorites in there, you can just use this to find them. And Bob's your uncle, as they say. You also have down here in the main thing, which we'll come down to anyway, this is your main controller for your radio right there. And this is your telephone, and this is volume, and which I just turned off. And so there you go. That's I would rate this as dead average as far as the interoperability of your menu system, as far as generally speaking, and especially the one I use the most is the audio system. And it's average. It's not better or worse. The displays are beautiful, but as far as the actual navigation through everything, you do have this thing right here, which will help you. Like if I want to go back to the map, it's kind of like a BMW iDrive situation. And I don't remember when they first started using this in Cadillacs. Oh, here's the information. Look at there. See, you can go around here and find all these things that you're looking for. Look, there's the car moving around. Whee! Let's see. I want to hear, what's that? Probably tire pressure. Tires, yes, I have them. I press you and nothing happens. You got to really press this thing, don't you? But look there. There's our tire pressures, and you can actually, using this, you can put it in your driver's display over here if you want to keep real close track of that. But like so many other things, this is very handy right here, fluids and filters. Our oil life is at 42%. Our air filter must have been recently replaced, because look at there. Look at what's over there. And the same thing, you can put the engine air filter into the driver's display. Who knew, huh? That's really interesting. So, very, very comprehensive in terms of what you can do. But again, if you were to purchase the car, you can spend all this time fine-tuning all this stuff for you for your best. Now, there is one I'll look at while I'm here. Sorry, and that's fuel economy. Because it's saying our best was 29.5. That's in the life of the vehicle, I do believe. And that's interesting. I got two different. This one says 4,328 miles. And what's over here? 9,897 miles. Now, what is that for? Is that when we need a service? Hell, I don't know. That's very strange. I don't really, boy, I don't know what to tell you about what the actual odometer is, because I seem to be giving theirs 98, 97 and 4328. Okay, which is which? I don't know. So, see what they're doing here, folks? They're just going amok. A lot of people, I feel like they hire a lot of people that primarily, when they set up these displays and everything, their number one thing is not actually driving cars. Their number one thing is designing displays and interfaces. And they're looking at it from the standpoint of what would a tablet do. But they forget where it is. They forget the fact that this happens to be inside an automobile. And so everything should be designed so that it's, number one thing, it's easy to get to and navigate through. It needs to, because the more time you have to spend messing with this stuff while you're driving, the more distracted you're going to be. And that's the number one problem we face right now, and this is why there's automobile fatalities have been up the last several years, is because people are more distracted than ever. And even though the vehicles are better able to take collisions and protect the occupants better than ever in history, we still have a lot of people getting killed on the road, and I feel like it's because they're not paying attention and they're getting in these horrific accidents. Something to think about when you're using this stuff. You ought to do most of it when you're parked, and then minimize the amount of interaction you have to do with the car as far as all the electronics are when you're driving, because you still need to pay attention. The manufacturers even know that. They have cameras watching you. Just think if you're nodding off or looking at, I've had several vehicles now, if you're just looking out the window at something, it knows that you've moved your head, and it's, are you all right? Is it time for a break? And they'll show you a little cup of coffee. Yeah, maybe you should pull over. No, I'm just looking out the window for a second. It's crazy. All right, down here, here's our climate control. It is a little bit more straightforward. You have your automatic setting here, and this is where you adjust your temperature. 2 zones up front, left and right. Pretty straightforward, nothing real crazy here to confuse and vex you. And as an act of excellent convenience, both your seat heating and your seat ventilation, we'll turn that on. How about that? Both of these are very easy to get to for both the driver and the passenger. It's right over to the right there. Below that, we have a USB-C and a USB-A interface right there. Very easy to get to, and if you don't want to look at this, you just do that and close it off, and it's gone. You no longer need to be bothered with it. Here, like I said before, here's our almost iDrive type of situation. Now, our shifter is interesting because it looks like a mechanical shifter, but it's overwhelmingly electronic in its operation. And to get it to do anything, you gotta push in this button right here. It will just ignore you. See, I'm doing this and it's telling me, no, press the side button, idiot. Oh yeah, okay, here we go. So I put it in reverse, and there's our cameras. Now, look at all the different things we have. I can go to overhead here, and there you are, right there. And the backup right there. Side, I can go to side. And there's each side of the vehicle. And then normal, which is just a regular backup camera. So this has been a big thing with GM. They love to put these cameras all over the place and give you access to them so that you can do all kinds of neat stuff with them, whatever you might require. What's this here? What does that do? Surround view, park assist, guidelines, standard, off. You can turn the guidelines off if you want to. There, they're gone. And now they're back. So I like the fact that you can fine-tune your cameras, and then again, like everything else on the car, set it up as you like it and then forget about it and let it do its thing. Now, to put it in park, you press a button. And the thing about this shifter that's really interesting to me is more and more we're seeing this. If you put the car into drive and you want to go into a manual mode, because you do have paddle shifters, you have to hit it again to go into the manual mode. There's your drive, there's neutral, sorry, drive, and then manual. And this activates your paddles here, so you can, manual 1 is what we're at right now. And how many speeds do we have all together? We have 9 speeds, which is an interesting number to be sure. But that's the one they chose, and that's what it's got. So anyway, so we have our iDrive type interface right here. It both clicks over to left and right and then turns, and then you can poke it. So it has all these things to help you navigate through the center screen. You also have fast access to everything like the home screen or information, which I've told you about before. It's right there. And then our navigation, which is right there. So this is good stuff right here. This makes accessing all this stuff quick and easy, as it should be. Over to the right, you can turn off your traction control if you want. You can also turn off the engine stop-start automatic interface right there. Turn that off. Let's move that over here out of the way. There you go. And here's our mode for our drives. And we've seen them before: Tour and Sport and Off-Road. So we're back to Tour and we're back to two-wheel drive. So, wow. Incidentally, and I will talk about this more when I'm driving, I think, this car has, when it's in two-wheel drive mode, it has a lot of torque steer. I feel like a lot of that is due to the fact that it's a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, and when the turbo kicks in and everything else, the vehicle does have a lot of torque steer. And what do I mean by torque steer? Well, that's moving it off usually to the left and right based on the fact that the torque is going out unevenly to the front wheels. And why does it do that? Well, in order for it to be completely even, and this is how most manufacturers get rid of it with front-wheel drive cars, is the drive shaft from the differential is the same length on each side. That pretty much gets rid of torque steer. But I'm willing to bet that there are different sized drive shafts on this vehicle because you can really feel it. And what I've discovered is that when it's in all-wheel drive, you think that would be eliminated. It isn't. It's still, if you have it in all-wheel drive and you're on the pavement out there driving and you really give it some gas from a slow, you know, like not punching it, but give it a good amount of gas, you'll still get some torque steer, which is kind of strange. I haven't encountered this in vehicles for a long time because most of them have. There's also electronics that you can use through the traction control system that can help mitigate any kind of torque steer, but this has it. And you know, with 235 horsepower on tap in a fairly small vehicle, it can really, once that turbocharger really kicks in, look out, because it will go to weaving on you just a little bit. Something to be aware of. You're probably, if you're in sport mode and all-wheel drive, it might be minimized a little bit, but I'll have to do some more testing to tell you for sure. But I've noticed that right off the bat, and that's very unusual for vehicles these days. All right, here's our extremely interesting, here's our wireless charging, and here's our, it's kind of a cubby situation that you slide into, or you can remove your little storage tray right here if you so desire. But there's a good amount of room in your center console. And how about our glove box? There we go. Pretty roomy. Can you put a tablet ID, tablet computer in there? Yeah. If it's fairly small, not a huge one, sure, it'll fit right in there. Now, what kind of upholstery do we have? Well, we have perforated for the ventilation, which is great, and it's, as mentioned before, it's also heated. And this is very nice leather. It's actually leather. It's not some kind of synthetic textile, which is becoming all the rage. And if we go up here, we have our shade right here for our panorama. And we can do this, and it will close itself. See, it takes a while because it's a big panorama and it has a long way to travel to completely close. But then we go there and we'll open it back up. Then you have a pretty much standard sized moonroof that you can open. You can both tilt and slide. So that's all there, and that's all good. Got your OnStar if you're so inclined. If you care to imbibe in the world of OnStar. And so there you go. This is the main driver's pod area. Confusing and yet clear. Explain it all. I have no idea. It's very, very, you know, you just don't know how you're going to get along with this until you get a chance. That's what I'm here for. I'm trying to tell you about all this stuff so you'll look for it. If you do want to buy one of these and you go take a test drive, make sure you look at some of this stuff yourself and see if you like it. As you can see, we don't quite open 90 degrees to the rear, and I would call the door size good for a compact like this. Of course, it does have that nice long wheelbase, and that helps everything. And when it comes to your rear seat passengers, and look at here, excellent leg room, and I have the front seat back a bit. So you got excellent foot and leg room. You have about a medium-sized drive shaft tunnel. And then you have your ventilation right here for your air conditioning system. And look at there. Look down there. You have heated seats in the rear. Very nice. And, of course, your USB-C and your USB-A interfaces, which is great for your rear seat passengers. You also have some very nice map lights up here. And how long does it take? Oh, man, they lock the rear window. They always do that. There we go. God, I wish I had a nickel for every car I get into, and for some reason the rear locks are on. 100%. 100%. The rear window glass goes into the door. That's always an important thing for me. I think it should go all the way down, especially if you find yourself with a dog in the back seat, and they're big enough so they can stick their head out there and enjoy the breeze. Of course, the smart people know that you should really have your dog in some kind of a carrier restraint system. But if you're like us and we live in a rural area and we're not driving all that fast on these roads, we pretty much let them roam free because it's a country thing. It's what you do with your dog. But if you're going to be a really good dog owner, find some kind of restraint system or put them in a crate. That's the best thing to do for their safety. But, you know, your dog, your decision. You might notice something interesting about the leather, by the way. You do have a lot of it's smooth, but then you got this nice suede on the sides and stuff. It's kind of good. The support of the front seats is real good. And the front seat room, by the way, is good. This thing does not have a problem with headroom anywhere, front or back. It being a two-rower, they can devote all this wonderful room here to your back seat. And that's probably one of the strongest points of this car is if you do carry passengers a lot, the rear seat room here is great. When you fold the seats down, the cargo room isn't outstanding at all because they've just made an allotment for most of this to be for human beings. And even when you fold the seats down, you still don't have that much room, but you have enough. and when the seats are deployed, you still have room for some good-sized suitcase. So what I'm saying is it's not deficient in this regard. It is just not as much as some of the competition. Like that vehicle right there has a little bit more cargo room in it. So, all in all, I'm real fond. Oh, wait, I forgot one of the most important tests of all. The armrest. Oh, good jaunty angle. Very, very nice. And you do you have a degree that you can recline this thing here? No, it stays in one position. However, it's a very good, the seat back angle is very good back here. I think you'll get no complaints from people. And the lower back support is pretty good. This here, this right in this area here. Very good support overall. So there you go. Here's our Cadillac XT4. Now, it is different in some ways than the other guys. The displays are beautiful. A little counterintuitive, but that's getting to be a problem with just about everybody these days. There's few out there that are really, you sit right down and everything makes perfect sense. That's just the way of it. But the quality of the displays in this car are as good as anything out there. And the room is excellent for passengers. And we'll go out to the driving mode. So how does it do as a driver? But in terms of the pure empirical, as far as room and things like that, this is a very good competitor in the luxury compact realm. Well, as you can see, when we go low speed here, we have all our camera array activated. Front camera, overhead camera. Overhead camera? Is there a drone following this vehicle? Hell, I don't know how they do all this. It seems to be a bit magic. And so we are now in the situation where there's a whole lot of unpredictable construction going on. I'm wondering, there we go. I'm cleaning my rear windshield wiper. Oh, excuse me, windscreen, also known as the rear gate. And one of the things about this car I really like is, well, one thing, I'm not real sure why the front camera is still on. I'm not real sure. I must have left it in that mode, huh? You think? I'll put it back on home. And it's not doing anything like that. Okay, that's fine. What? Maybe I need to... Oh, let's put on navigation. There we go. There we go. But this camera is still on. So maybe I need to... Every time I turn around, the Cadillac User Interface, known as Q, seems to be changed a little bit. And this is interesting. And what if I want to go home? Camera. Can I turn you off? Can I just hit you? What do I have to do to get this camera to go back off? Well, What? This vehicle is interesting in that it feels it doesn't feel top heavy, but it feels a little taller than a lot of SUVs and CUVs I've been dealing with lately. Not bad, but it's just noticeable because you get one or two different things with these vehicles. You get either a feeling that, oh wow, I can go straight if I want to, but for how far? It says Route 97 closed, but for how far? We're going to find out. And I don't know why. Cannot move item while... What the hell? Well, that's interesting. How about if I do this? It does that. Well, let's check our mode. We could check that. No, we can't, actually. There we go. Oh, here we go. Boy, I tell you. I cannot apparently turn off these this front camera. Well, I'm trying to figure this all out, and I've never been in a car like where I can't figure out how to do this. Where I actually can't figure out how to take this screen down. I'm going to go this way now. Alrighty then. Well, you know what I'm going to have to do here? I'm going to have to see if I can reboot this beast. Is it possible to do that? Well, I got a place I'll stop up here and see if I can reboot what's going on. I'm trying to go to the main display, and it does that, but I can't even access the camera. See, I'm trying to do that, and it won't do anything. It just stays on. So, here comes our place I can stop right up here. Here we go. All right, here's what we're going to do. Well, it looks like that did the trick. Here as I can tell. Put the map back up. There we go. All right. Wasn't that fun? Well, I could not turn off the front camera. It was just stayed on no matter what I did, and that was just strange. It was useful initially when I was going about 5 miles an hour, but once I got on the highway, I got tired of it. And yet, it continued on in its mode. It was in annoyance mode. That's what it must have been. I should have been able to figure that out. Okay. And we will activate our cruise control. We'll try and see if a camera doesn't pop up. It's doing that. I don't want it to do that. This car and I are rapidly There we go. Rapidly becoming confused with each other. There, but I think we got it now. And if I want to adjust the distance between vehicles, this is right here. There we go. Good, good, good. Now what if I want to steer it? Will it steer itself? I don't see anything that says it will, so I don't think we have that capability on this vehicle unless it's just automatically already doing it. And it is not. Okay, good, good. There's probably a sub-menu somewhere where I can adjust that. First of all, let's bump our speed up just a little bit here. And settings, vehicle, audio, rear seat reminder, comfort and convenience. Huh. Okay. Oh, I know what. I know what. Let's try this. Well, that's just that. And this is... I can't tell what the heck this is doing. There we go. All right. Yeah, there we go. All right, and then hit this. No, that doesn't work. Maybe it's just me, you know. Maybe I'm just getting old and surly and fixed in my ways, and I just can't figure this stuff out anymore. But I'm telling you right now, I can't seem to find anything I want to on this car instantly. I'll have to double check and see if we have self-steering capability. I'd be very surprised if it didn't, but it's entirely possible that it does not. Oh, here we go. It's all the way down here. Let's do that. Ha! There we go. So again, instead of being up here with the cruise control controls, we have a lane centering device, and that is down here. All right, I understand you now. Again, with all these cars, you just have to get adjusted to them. But sometimes I wonder about when it takes longer for me to, wow, well, that was an interesting bit of driving. When it takes longer for me to figure out where something is, I can't kind of help but wonder. There's two different things going at play here. This is a lack of standardization, which you can say is good or bad, you know, depending on what you want to do. And the other is the right, the God-given right of the designer to come up with a new way of doing things. And a particular manufacturer decide that that's how they want to do something. Now we should be self-steering, and we are. So again, that's all the way down here by the heating, ventilation, and that kind of sort of thing, which is a little surprising that they'd put it down there, but not completely surprising. And there is some torque steer. We are in two-wheel drive at the moment. You can really hear that little 4 winding up with its turbo charging. But it is really interesting to me how much torque steer this. I haven't driven a car that has this much of this. And what am I talking about with torque steer? Well, as a front-wheel drive vehicle, sometimes when you get on the gas, since your front wheels are steering wheels, oops, there's a deer. Did you see the deer? There's another. There's another. This is why you have to be careful all the time. You have to watch the woods. No telling what may come out of the woods. The torque that is distributed to the front wheels, since they're the wheels under power, can affect the steering under certain circumstances. And one of them is if the drive shafts are unequal lengths from the differential, front differential to each wheel, that is a recipe for torque steer. And it's largely disappeared on most front drive cars, but not on this one. And what really amazes me is most front wheel drive cars that suffer from this, if you have an all-wheel drive option and you put it in all-wheel drive, that usually disappears. That problem goes away. I haven't really noticed it in this vehicle going away. See, right now I can feel it in the steering. It's there. It's not horrific, but it's definitely there, and you wouldn't expect that from a car like this. Because, like I say, it's a problem that has largely disappeared in most vehicles that use a front drivetrain. Again, depending on your drive mode, we have two-wheel drive, and if I just touch this, we'll now go to all-wheel drive. Now, as far as I know, I believe we are still in the touring mode. See, it's a little better with all-wheel drive. Yeah, it takes care of a good chunk of it. But it's still, I have noticed it though, even in all-wheel drive, I have noticed it. So, I don't know what to say about that. We don't like that. Is it a deal breaker? Nah. And you're only going to notice it under very hard acceleration, by the way. So, now the question is, am I now in sport? Well, I'm not, because if I go to here, to our modes, and it goes to sport, everything changes here. And it actually shows that we're on sport. So you do have the option, and now I'm verifying this, you do have the option when you're in the touring mode of either being two-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. When you go into the sport mode, you are in all-wheel drive all the time, and I'll slow down a bit here. And if we go into off-road mode, naturally, that is in all-wheel drive. Now, do we have a central differential lock? I can't really tell. Let me have a look here. Now we're back to two-wheel drive and the touring mode. Y'all remember that. Now hold this down. Nothing happens. I'm trying to get you to do something here. Wake up. Yes, all-wheel drive blinking. Now sport. So there is a little differential, center differential in the display there that shows that you're in all-wheel drive, but I don't know if it's a locking differential. If we go here to off-road, oops, there we go. It doesn't change. It looks exactly the same as it does when it's in the sport mode. So this has not got what I would call a real dedicated all-wheel drive mode that is designed to go in rugged conditions, but it is designed, if you put it in the off-road mode, it does change some things. This little information button, by the way, is really great, because I'd like to see what my fuel economy is right now. And I'm averaging 21 overall, and instantaneously is 100, because I'm coasting. The best has been 29.5. Not bad at all. Cadillac. Take a look underneath. Now, the first thing I noticed when I caught underneath this XT4 was we have a neat little rear suspension on it, and it's nice because it's very easy to point out stuff on it. It's kind of in the open and not completely hidden behind a whole bunch of like 99 different links and things like this, although it is a multi-link suspension, to be sure. But one of the first things I noticed was I've been talking about the fact that there seems to be more road noise than I would expect from a Cadillac. And if you take a look underneath here, there's not a whole lot of cladding. See all this stuff here is kind of dragging in the wind. And I think that's where the road noise is coming from. If they put cladding over all this, which is becoming more and more common, I think it'd be a lot quieter. And that's the difference. That's my theory. It's just a theory. But I'm not in any way surprised by the fact that there's not more cladding. Most of the vehicles in this class I see these days are completely covered on the underside, and the main reason they do that is to keep the noise down. It makes the lower part of the vehicle more aerodynamic, and which also helps gas mileage, of course. And if it was a electric overall efficiency. But this one doesn't have much of anything. There's our fuel tank right there. And our exhaust system, of course, is very obvious right there. Let's take a look at the rear suspension, which is, like I said, multi-link. Here's our lower link here, and then we have a front link right there. And there's your rear drive shaft right there. And this whole structure here is our subframe, which is bolted to our unibody, and it looks fairly substantial. It's not like a huge forged piece of aluminum like you'll find on some vehicles, but it's pretty stout, and it definitely does the job because the suspension is firm enough that you get real good handling out of it, and it's not overly punishing. So overall, it's a good system. It works well. What else do we have here? Where's our shock absorber? It's right there. And as you can see, this unit right here, and it's got a wire leading it up into it, I believe there it is. That is what adjusts your shock absorbers when you change modes, for example, going from the touring mode to the off-road mode or the sport mode. It changes your valving slightly. So that's pretty much standard fare. Here we have an electric box that's yellow. I'll just leave that there. And then here's our differential right here, our rear differential. And it, of course, has a drive shaft going to it. You can just see it right there. And there's a solenoid on here somewhere. I'm not sure. It's either here or it could be on the drive shaft further up. But that is what actuates the rear drivetrain when you are going from front-wheel drive to all-wheel drive. And that is, of course, completely silent when it does that. You don't hear any big clicks or anything like that. When you switch into all-wheel drive mode, it's very seamless and quiet and wonderful. Like I said before, I don't believe there is a center differential lock on this, but it does a good job. Now, if we look here, this is very interesting. You can see the myriad of links. You got your upper link. Right, oops, sorry, I'm in the camera. I'm sorry about that. There's your upper link, and there's your lower link, and there's a lateral link right there. And so all these links, and there's there's a little Tinkerbell flying around underneath. Anyway, here's our brake unit, which is a substantial brake unit. And so all in all, it looks fairly solid. I would not take this on serious off-roading, obviously. But all in all, it's a nice, tight system. I just think the only thing Cadillac really needs to do is put some more cladding underneath here to quiet down the road noise just a bit. I know I've made a big deal out of that, and I don't want you to go away thinking that it's loud or it's like, oh, this is terrible. No, it's just a little louder than you would think. There's a little more road noise than I would have expected on the way Cadillacs usually are, because they're usually very quiet. And it's especially noticeable, like I said, because the glass is so quiet. All right, plenty of ground clearance. You can do a little bit of light off-roading, no problem. Well, do we have good things in small packages? Yeah, I'd say so. Here's your 2024 XT4 all-wheel drive Sport Monroney. The base price is $44,495 with a as-equipped price of $57,815. Wow, I thought it was $615, but I was off by $200. Our overall mileage is 25 miles per gallon, which is pretty damn good. So what do you think? Well, it's a really competitive class, the luxury SUV class, especially in the compact division these days. So this may be worth a look for you. because it does have a lot of room in it for its size, which is a very commendable accomplishment. And a good little power plant, and it handles well, rides well, and it's quiet. And it also has that Cadillac user interface, so check it out. Thanks for watching.
Oh. Yes. Yes. Wow. It's beautiful. It's amazing. Hey, I don't know about you, but I say that's how you start a car up nowadays. Woo!
Do whatever the tube tells you. You dress like the tube, you eat like the tube, you raise your children like the tube, you even think like the tube. This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.